Bam. All right. We're officially recording. I'm live from Egypt. We got James in the UK, Kelly in Portland. But thank you guys for joining us for this knowledge drop. I think it's the 52nd ever knowledge drop. Very cool topic and two very perfect people to cover the subject. So thank you guys for doing it. And thank you guys, everybody who's joined us, who was able to find the Zoom room and to be here today with us. It's awesome. And just real quick on the housekeeping before I pass the mic over to our two hosts and special guests today. One thing we pointed out that you've already been doing a little bit is use the chat box. Make sure it's set to all panelists and attendees. Feel free to keep it lively in there and comment throughout the knowledge drop about, my weird tie-dye shirt or, how it matches Kelly's lipstick, whatever you want to talk about. Keep the chat box lively. And then you can also use the Q&A box. So if as these guys are going along and something sparks a question for you, feel free to just pop it right into the Q&A box as we're going. And then at the end, we'll hopefully have 5-10 minutes to get to your questions at the very end of this. And then, as I mentioned, this is getting recorded. So this will live on for all of eternity as long as the internet exists in our Knowledge Drop archive, which is on YouTube, which you can find in the Knowledge Drop channel. On our nation Slack. So that's kind of all the stuff to get out of the way. And thanks again for you guys for doing this today. It's an awesome subject. And with all of that out the way, I'll let you take it away.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm just going to share my screen. And hopefully that will pop up pretty soon.
Nailed it.
Great. Cool. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this knowledge drop. We're going to be talking today about career change tips and hopefully taking you a bit beyond the basics of throwing a CV out into the market, throwing your resume out into the market and keeping fingers crossed that it sticks. So today we're going to be talking about three common areas or three mistake areas that people tend to victim to when they're making career changes. And then some ideas, tips, or tools that you can help to get better results starting from today. So everything we're going to suggest you can do right now and get some real results from, and we'll give you some opportunities to ask questions at the end. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you can just see a donut-shaped model. What we're going to be covering today are 3 of 6 parts of the Career Max system, which is something I use with my clients. So we're going to be talking about mindset, strategy. And there are obviously lots more depth than what we're going to cover today, but today is 3 small areas where we can just get some detail. So why am I dropping today? Well, I've actually had 4 successful career changes myself. So I've been an Army officer. I've then worked in corporate learning and development, organizational development, HR teams. I've run from recruitment. And then I became the GM of an international business for a university, figure business, and then now I'm a coach. And my coaching business is working with people who are changing careers. And so far, really good hit rate. So 80+% of roles that people who work with me apply for, they get. We're talking getting pay rises of between $5,000 and $50,000 when they move. And their motivation and their set is much more fluid and flexible, so they're able to do those career jumps that they didn't necessarily think they could do. Handing to Kelly.
Great, thanks, Jimmy. So I have 16 years agency side experience. So brand marketing, brand building, working for clients like LinkedIn, actually when I was traveling with ROI. And I have to say, when I was traveling with my fellow Earharts, they basically gave me the support and encouragement to quit that agency job. And now I'm a solopreneur. I have my own business as a career coach and personal brand consultant. My old agency hired me back as a freelance recruiter. And within 9 months, I was hired, or I got the top rated badge on Upwork based on my 5-star reviews and helping clients with a lot of their content. So LinkedIn, CVs, cover letters, and whatnot. And we're going to touch a little bit on that today, but I know there's been a lot of knowledge drops on that. So which is why this opportunity is much broader and bigger about strategy, mindset, and also how to set yourself apart. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. So who's this knowledge drop for and why would you even care? So on the left-hand side there, you can see a heap of statistics, and I'm not going to read through them, but essentially what we're saying is that most people in the next 6 months to 3 years are going to want to change roles. Actually, the research that most of us will change careers, not just jobs, 7 times during their working life. So when we're talking about how to use some of the stuff we're going to be presenting today, this is all about not only enabling you to move from one accounting job to the next accounting job, or one marketing job to the next marketing job, but actually going, well, I was an accountant and now I want to be a marketer, and how do I achieve that? So it's really important, and if you can understand the landscape out there and how to play the game, essentially, this is what's going to get you ahead. And the other good news is, using some of the stuff we're telling you today, actually you'll be able to uncover opportunities that you might not necessarily have had access to, and get ahead in terms of advantage in negotiating, in planning your approach, and delivering a really good outcome. So that's why we're covering what we're covering. Where do we fit into the process? If you think of the job hunt or the career change process a bit like the series of donuts or series of bubbles, we tend to meet people, Kelly and I both meet people when they're in that dark space. They're unhappy in their current role. And then they go into what I call the traverse zone in my business, and Kelly calls it something pretty similar, where we essentially work through a mindset exercise of, well, what's out there for me? What's next? What could I do? What could I change to? Then we show you how to manage a great application process. And that's so much more than just throwing a resume into the market. It's about setting yourself up. It's about interviewing well. It's about preparing referees. It's about landing the offer. And we want you to get the job offer and the package that you're looking for. And then we want to help you transition out of your current role, leaving relationships and dignity and everything that you have worked so hard to create intact, and then land in the new role like a rock star. And then at that point, we kind of wave you goodbye and wish you well. And we know that you're happy and doing great until hopefully you want to come back and work with us again. So what I thought I'd do first of all is, as we're talking about mindset first, is to start with some good news. So we know right now that about 73% of companies or recruiters are struggling to find relevant candidates. And the average candidate takes 62 days to be hired, but the best ones are getting snapped up within 10. And we also know that 73% of candidates are hired when they're not looking. So lots of statistics there. What does that mean? Well, first of all, it means that you're in the driving seat when it comes to looking for the next career. And that's a really positive place to be, if you can be found and if you can impress at the right time. So it's all about mindset, strategy, and brand. But knowing that information, knowing that you're in a driving seat, hopefully means that you feel good right now and you're going, okay, yes, I can do this. I'm really excited. I'm pumped. Let's do something. So let's talk about mindset. Mindset's about being in the right headspace and ready to seize the opportunity when it comes up. Now, reality is most people start looking for a job when they look something like this. They're too busy, they're miserable, frustrated, lower self-esteem, and they've got irrational expectations of changing the world. And so what we want to do is remember that statistic of 73% of people are hired when they're not even looking, and short circuit the process. So we want you to be headhunted. We want you to be tapped on the shoulder. We want opportunities to come to you when you're not looking and when you're not desperate, because your mindset is going to be so much better. In order to do that, you need to be prepared. You need to have an up-to-date resume. You need to have your online presence sorted out. You need to be engaging with your networks and going to network events. You need to be on forums and have a presence online so you are coming across as credible and an expert in your space. And unfortunately, if you haven't done all that stuff, then I'm going to give you a tool right now that you can use that's going to help, and it's called wins. So if you're in that bad space, then what we want to do is supercharge you before you go into any selection process. And the wins tool is based on a Stanford model, which I've tweaked a little bit, and essentially allows you to short circuit the wiring in your brain. So imagine now that you've received a call back from a recruiter and you've got to go on a screening call and you've got to impress them. And what you need to do is take 3 to 5 minutes before that call and find a quiet place. Close your eyes and start breathing. And if you're on the call right now, I recommend that you do this. So close your eyes and just listen to my voice. This little exercise to try and help you release some happy chemicals to make a really cool job of this process. So close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and just imagine the biggest win that you've ever had in your career. Imagine it. So the W for wins is what, where, and when. What was the win? So just think to yourself while you've got that breath, what was the win? Where were you when it happened? And when was it? and then breathe out. And next breath in. Who were you interacting with when you had that win, and how did you work together? Remember the smiles on everybody's faces. Remember the feeling of victory, the sense of all that happened when it was going on, and breathe out. And breathe in. What did you notice during that win about yourself, about the people you worked with, about what led to victory? And what did you learn? And breathe out. And final breath in. How did you feel? Imagine that feeling again, the sense of achievement, the pride, the wonderful career-making moment that you just had, and breathe out. So hopefully what happened during those 3, 4, 5 breaths that you took is that you got a little warm feeling in your tummy, and you got a little, I tend to get a little warm feeling down the back of my neck, and I just feel good. And what you're doing is essentially releasing happy chemicals into your brain. Now, what we know from neuroscience is that when we do that, when we then go into that screening with that recruiter, that we're going to produce a much better outcome because we're more relaxed, we're more confident. And we've also just remembered a really good example to share on that screening call in vivid detail. And that's the most important thing, is we can access that memory really vividly, and we can share that with the recruiter and impress them. So try out wins if you're in a desperate strait, but the opportunity is to start doing the preparation. So let's talk about strategy then. So strategy is about making better choices. And I want to share some disturbing information with you, first of all. So what we know is that people have a really flawed process for choosing a job. They end up in a situation like the left-hand side of the page, where they've got a bad boss, they hate their co-workers, they feel like they can't make a difference, and there's all those things that you can see on the page. But then when they go and choose a new job, they use completely different criteria to choose the job. And then they wonder why in 2 years' time, why their job sucks again. And actually, if we take the top 10 across choosing and leaving jobs, only 4 of them actually overlap. And you can see them in the blue box there. So the only ones that overlap are, I feel like I'm challenged, there's the opportunity to learn and grow, I feel like somebody recognizes me, and the culture is okay. But everything else is completely different. So when I work with clients, I make them go on a bit of a due diligence exercise. So first one we can do is to do some research. We can look at the industry that we're working in. We can look at the company we want to work for. We can tap our networks, and we can look at the financial reports. And this covers off the stuff that we normally miss. So some of you may have heard of a company called Theranos. I just read this amazing book called Bad Blood, which is all about kind of how Theranos rose and fell. Wicked book if you get the opportunity to read it. But I thought I'd use them as my example. Jump on a site like Glassdoor, and you can see all of the employee reviews that have been left about working at Glassdoor. You can find out a little bit of salary information. You can jump on LinkedIn, and you can tap your network by seeing who you know who works there. You can give them a call. You can have a chat with them. You can find out what it's like. You can also maybe ask them to give you a bit of an in, and I know we do that on Slack quite a lot. Also recommend you jump into Google News or any news sites. Just do a bit of research on, has there been a scandal? Has there been any information recently? Often when I interview people as a recruiter, I'll say,
We lose Jimmy, Kelly?
I'm hoping it comes back in any second.
Sorry?
It was just a glitch, Jim.
I think we lost you for a second. Yeah, you're back.
Okay, I'm back. Cool. So the other research you can do is to find out what you're worth. So jump on a website like PayScale and see what the market's paying for roles like you're paying. When a recruiter asks you, what's your salary expectation, tell them what the market is paying for a role like that, rather than what you actually want, because you come across as credible. Do some LinkedIn stalking of the person you're going to be working for. Have they got recommendations? Have they got testimonials? Have they even got a digital presence? Do you want to work for somebody who hasn't got testimonials and no digital presence? Ask to meet the team before you sign a contract. Ask them for examples of, do you get to do meaningful stuff here, or is it just spinning wheels? And jump on websites like Gallup and Kununu, which are also engagement info review sites. The most important thing here is to defy your cognitive bias. Everybody dreams of getting that job offer from Apple, and then suddenly they get to Apple and it's not what they expected. So we want to defy the cognitive bias by almost convincing ourselves for reasons we don't want the job. And if we can't find any reasons, then we can do it. So that's it from me for a little bit. I'm going to hand over to Kelly.
Amazing. Thank you, Jimmy. So I'm going to talk about the concept of a personal brand. We all know what brand is out there in the world, but truth be told, like we as individuals and who we are, is basically conferred as considered a personal brand. So what is that? It's your reputation, it's your calling card, it's how you show up, and it's what you want to be known for. And what's interesting in the job search place or even at work, there can be a difference of what you're known for and what you want to be known for. And you can make a choice. So for example, I now, after having done this or being a person that likes to do a lot of self-reflection, I want to be known for grace, how I handle stress under pressure, warmth. I want people to feel that kindness and comfort in any interaction with me. And I want to be curious. I want to ask good questions, be inquisitive, and I want to talk more about the other person than I want to talk about myself. And those are things that are transcendent, and they go outside of life and beyond work as well. So I encourage you to think about that, what you're maybe currently known for in the workplace or at your current job, and maybe what you want to be known for, and then how true that is to how you show up in life. And what's interesting about this quote here from Warren Buffett, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. So not to scare you by any means, but like a brand out there in the world or your personal brand, these things are delicate. They take time to build, and quick actions or indecisions or really anything can influence that. And unfortunately, perception is reality. Short, small example, 3 months into ROI with Earhart, I needed 4 people to help get me on a flight on time after my birthday. And for the rest of the program, I was that girl that everyone had to check in, worry about, is she going to make the flight? And in my life, I'm a very accountable, responsible person, but missing that alarm obviously impacted my personal brand. And I spent the rest of the program kind of like rebuilding that. So just think about how you show up and what you want to be known for. And it's important because it brings clarity and consistency in your interactions, and it's how you become memorable, and you can create meaningful connections and opportunities. And this can be style-wise. So I'm a girl that has bangs. I've had bangs for 10 years, the longest relationship I've ever had. I love lipstick. I also show up to tracks at 8 a.m. with lipstick. Travis, thank you for noticing. But those things are superficial, but it's still part of who you are. What's meaningful is your personality, your tone, your energy, how you articulate yourself, which is why we're going to talk about a few quick notes on resume, LinkedIn, and cover letter, because tone is everything. And it's word selection that makes a big difference, because we all start to sound the same on paper. I'm results oriented. I'm ambitious. I'm passionate. If when you take a fresh look at your resume, strike all of those from the record. And I'm here to encourage you to have a personality, be human, and talk about and celebrate your successes on paper. So this is just a one-page example. I worked with this client, and I be mindful of your industry too. So he was an executive producer, owned his own agency, so we could be a little more creative with it. But I always recommend doing a sans serif font. So that's the font that doesn't have the little feet. So if you think about Times New Roman or like a typewriter, don't use those fonts. It's old school. It makes you look dated and not modern and not fresh. You can use a pop of color to create some visual hierarchy, or again, showcase your personal brand. I recommend a deep red, deep blue, or deep green. It still prints well for black and white. And you can add a title under your name. So in this case, we wanted to showcase different types of things that he had experience in, but they can be more playful. It can be a statement. It can be a quote. Immediately engage them into your content. Don't jump straight into your work history. Tell them a little about who you are and what makes you special. And the bio, that's an opportunity to be human. So don't make it about an objective. That means nothing. That immediately dates your resume. So this is just one example. And just another example, I don't know how well this is coming across on screen, but down at the bottom, we had a little extra real estate. So I created a section called Other Super Cool Shit. And again, this is relevant to industry, but have fun with it. Be provocative, be playful, be conversational, stay professional for sure, but you will stand out on paper when you stop sounding like everyone else. So give yourself permission to be a little creative. And then for LinkedIn, and I know there was a knowledge drop recently on LinkedIn, but a few notes here. That background image is so important. It seems small, maybe silly. There's obviously the default banner that's blue for LinkedIn, why not take an amazing landscape shot that you've taken while traveling, or maybe a quote, again, that's important to you. I fell in love with this canvas image 2 years ago before I started my business, and now it's like it's my brand. And then my headshot was taken by a fellow remote while traveling 2 years later, and they just look how like it just, you immediately get a sense that like I have my shit together, my presentation's important. Those little things absolutely matter in presenting your personal brand. You may or may not already know this, but you can customize the text under your name. So here I'm telling a little story about who I am, what I do, and what I offer clients. It'll automatically default to your current title, but you can say more. Again, tell a story in your bio. It's okay to use I statements. Add more skills. You can have up to 50, so a little pro tip there. And as everyone knows, recommendations are so important. And then on the cover letter, do your research. Always address it to someone personal. I love starting cover letters with the question, what creates a sense of connection for you? For me, it brings joy. I am about honesty and transparency. Research the company. Maybe ask a question. I'd love to partner you with X, Y, and Z. Because you want to make it about them. Really bad cover letters are when you copy paste your resume into your cover letter. You're not telling them anything new. It's really selfish. It's really boring. So do your research, take a little extra time, create a master template like this, and customize it for every role that you apply for. So really, in a nutshell, when it comes to your personal brand, just be you. Be human, have your own voice, have a point of view, use non-traditional language, talk about what you've done, everything that Jimmy said, talk about that impact, those wins. Do not talk about just what you did. That's not interesting. It's just a job description. And then demonstrate who you are beyond the job. At the end of the day, all of this will really help you create that emotional connection on paper, online, and in person, and you will absolutely stand out in a super highly competitive job search marketplace.
Thanks, Kelly. That was awesome. So in summary, guys, as I think we've probably gone through today, getting a new job or changing roles, getting a new career is so much more important than just throwing some resumes out there and hoping. Whilst the market is on your side, you can really make a difference and get much better results by working with someone who knows what they're doing, like Kelly and I, or by paying attention to stuff like we're talking about and enacting some of the stuff we've shared with you today. You can bring yourself to life. You can stand out amongst the crowd if you do the pre-work and if you do the preparation and due diligence. And I think that's pretty much it from us. I'm so happy to chat with anyone who wants to learn any more and answer any questions. If anybody wants to get in contact with us, our contact details are on these 2 slides. So there's questions for Kelly, you can reach out to her directly, and questions for me, reach out directly also. But throwing open the floor. Back to Travis.
Awesome. That was awesome, guys. Why don't you jump out of screen share, Jimmy, and we'll just go back to our 3 little cute faces here and hopefully take some questions. I have one, and I think I actually just saw another one show up in the question and answer box. We don't have too much time, but one question that has come to mind recently with a friend, talking to them through like a career change. If say like something like remote work is really important to you, but it's not necessarily like a given in like the negotiation process of landing a new role. Like what's your recommendation on like where you bring up those sort of important things to you that aren't like, you know, salary or whatever, but more like it's like an aspect of a job that you're like, but I really want to make sure if I do take this job that's built into it, that I can work remotely or whatever. Like at what point, is that like the last conversation before you sign the contract? You're like, oh, by the way, I'm only going to take this if I work remotely, or like, when do you recommend bringing that stuff into the fold?
So I go first, Kelly, and then you can embellish. So there's 2 trains of thought here. So the balance of power shifts after you've got an offer to try and negotiate the benefits, the package, the flexibility, all those things into the job offer that you want. However, my advice to candidates is normally to have an open conversation about the type of work and where you work best before you get to the offer process. So I would be if I'm working through an agency, I'd be asking the recruiter to ask those questions on my behalf. If I'm working directly, I'd be having a conversation with the HR team and asking a question like, so what are the flexible working opportunities this company offers? Can you tell me whether there's scope for sabbaticals? Can you tell me whether there's scope for working in a non-traditional way? What is your company's stance on that? And so you're asking open questions, not saying, can I work remotely, but saying, so what is the company's position on this? Then when I'm at the offer process, I would want to be confirming the arrangements that were going to be available to me. And then when you're in the job, you can actually have a conversation with your manager and, think about the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week principle, where you start to demonstrate that you're actually more effective outside the office than you are in the office by negotiating larger and larger windows of time away. So it might not be best to go in on day one for a company that doesn't have an active remote work policy and say, hey, look, I need to go on remote year for 12 months. But over the course of 3 to 6 months, you could really build a credible picture for that by demonstrating over a period of time. Anything you wanted to add, Kelly?
No, that's great. Definitely have the conversation before the offer stage. Otherwise, it'll feel like a surprise and it'll change the energy and dynamic and potentially put the offer at risk. So 100% agree.
Awesome. Well, maybe you can field this one, Kelly. We actually have a bunch of questions came through. John, who also said hi, Kelly, in a separate question. John, maybe you know John E from your community or something.
Yeah. What up, John Michael?
He's asking, any thoughts on how hard it is to break through the machine and database screening job app process? Like when you submit online via LinkedIn or something like that, you're obviously getting thrown into a huge database, and you kind of jump through that.
Yeah, so a few things. So some of you might be aware of ATS or applicant tracking system. So they're software that especially the big companies are using as a first line of defense to decide if you're qualified or not. So a few tips. I recommend submitting a resume in Word. Some of those softwares will reject a PDF, which is obviously crazy because that's what we've been doing our whole lives. Keyword matching. So there's a really cool free site called jobscan.com. Travis, I don't know if you can put that in the chat group for me. Jobscan.com. You can do like a free scan of your resume against a job posting and it'll call out matchability. So I don't know if you remember in that example I showed, I create this section called skills directly under the bio, and you can change those keywords based on the job. So that helps a lot. Don't put anything in the footers. Don't include graphics like this. And nowadays, simple is better. So if you follow those tricks and you can like do that pre-screening, you have better odds of standing out as far as those requirements go. And then I think another way to break through is, again, being human, using refreshing language. So when it does get to an actual person who's reading it, they'll be more likely to reach out.
Awesome. Anything else on that, Jimmy? Or
the only thing, the little trick that I caught on to when I was a recruiter is if you are wanting to, we call spoofing the keyword generator. So often they'll have weighted ATS systems. So somebody who says, maybe it's a job, let's take an example. Maybe it's a marketing role for a brand, and they are looking for somebody whose CV mentions the word brand frequently because there's a chance that person will have a higher level of experience. You can spoof that system by adding in keywords in font size 2, white text, somewhere in your resume. And so you can add, maybe you haven't got space because you've only got 1, maybe 2 pages. You haven't got lots of space to put heaps of detail about what you did. But if you shrink the text size, it'll pick it up. It'll pick the resume up, and you can spoof the system. What I really, really strongly recommend against, though, is doing that, putting every word you can think of under the sun. You're just trying to add a couple of extra words that maybe you haven't got space for.
Yeah, don't want to seem like a robot wrote the resume, I guess.
Yeah, and I finally figured out how to look at the chat box, guys. Sorry, it's been. I'm newbie here. I just reread John's question. I just want to address something he asked too. Sorry about that, John. I think when you apply via LinkedIn, Indeed, or a job website, you should absolutely want to address it to a personal person. So do your research and find that person on LinkedIn. Even make an educated guess. It's better to address to an individual versus to whom it may concern. And then also don't hesitate to send a separate email as a follow-up after you've applied, especially if it doesn't accept a cover letter. That's another way to address it. And then, this is crazy, people, place a phone call. If you're really excited about the job, submit an application, send that follow-up email. If you haven't heard anything, like leave a voicemail 2 weeks later. No one's doing that. So you will absolutely stand out and break through with those hundreds of applications that are happening.
Yeah, I always encourage candidates to get on the phone, get on LinkedIn, find out who the hiring manager is, and give them a call and just say, hey, look, I think your job is awesome. Could I take you out for a coffee and just find out a bit more? Could we jump on a Zoom call for 10 minutes just so I can find out more? You're not saying employ me, you're just standing out. So Kelly's advice is super sound.
Last quick question, and I want to be good about time. We're already a little bit over, but we have a lot of questions coming in because this is obviously such a great topic, and you guys are perfect people to ask this stuff to. But last quick question is, would you guys recommend people only applying to jobs where they fit all the requirements listed on the posting? Or if you fit most of them, do you still think it's worth kind of trying to sneak your application for that? Or where do you fall on that?
Go, Kelly. You go on this one. This is yours.
Well, this might be no surprise, but men apply for most jobs that they don't qualify for, and women don't apply for those jobs that they actually qualify for. So not to make it a gender thing, but you have experience, and there's always a gray area between what's on paper. For example, I got a job at a digital agency that asked for 5 years of digital experience. I had 1.5. It's all in how you show up, how you communicate your experience, how you talk about your skills, and again, like if you're a chemistry fit. So yes, if you don't hit 100% of the requirements, people are being more flexible on things like having an MBA, having a college degree. You can always get on-the-job training. You can take skills, you can upskill and take learning sessions online if you don't have experience in, let's say, something like Tableau, if it's a more technical job. So yes, absolutely throw your hat in the ring. And then when you talk to them and they ask, just be really transparent about what you know and what you don't know.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? You don't get the job, right? So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. This is super, awesome to listen to you guys talk about something that so in depth and have such mastery over. So thanks for sharing that with the nation. Thanks for just being the kind of people that want to share your wisdom with the nation. And thanks to everybody who joined us out there. I know we're a little over time, so I'm going to shut it down. But as these guys mentioned, you can find them on Slack. Obviously, it's Jimmy B, Kelly B, pretty easy to find. And hopefully, they have a little bit of time to answer any more questions we couldn't get to today. But thanks again, and we'll have another knowledge drop in 2 weeks. And it's actually sort of a subject that overlaps. It's how to give feedback and how to take feedback. So it'll be an interesting subject as well, kind of in the field of employment and all that kind of stuff. All right. Happy days,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Thanks for having us. Thanks, Jimmy.
Cheers.
Bye.